Hey guys, before I get into what I want to get into tonight, I am going to do a little announcement for my class that's coming up on Friday. It's at It's Your Journey in Huron, Ohio. Itsyourjourney.com. You can go and check out the details there. The class is called The Native Spirit, and we're going to be looking at working with the spirit of Blackhawk, who is a Sauk Native warrior. Medicine man and honorary war chief, and we're going to look at some of the interesting ways that the background, not only his history, but the background of spiritualism and some of the folk practices in which he's sort of a folk saint in, how they blend and come together. We're going to be looking at the history of Blackhawk. We're going to be looking at Mother Leafy Anderson and the spiritualist church movement of the South in New Orleans. We're going to be looking at different ways that we can petition Blackhawk for help and protection and healing. We're going to look at different ways to heal and cleanse with Blackhawk. We're even going to explore White Eagle. Is White Eagle from folk magic the same White Eagle from spiritualism? Do they overlap? How can we utilize those connections to both Blackhawk and White Eagle to help us on our spiritual path? So that's this Friday at 6 p.m. at It's Your Journey. If you're interested, go ahead and give us a call at the shop to schedule so I know how many copies and things like that to make. But that's not why I wanted to jump on here. That's not why I wanted to do this video. I actually wanted to do this video to kind of bitch a little bit. People think that you are a medium or a psychic or a healer or whatever. You're on a spiritual path, that you got to be super understanding and super compassionate and super tolerant. And yes, those are all things that we should strive for, but I'm human, and sometimes I see things that make me just want to, just hit myself in the face repeatedly without stopping because of the ridiculousness of it. And that's why I called this video Get Grounded, because there is such a blaring lack of groundedness in what I see that's passing as spirituality today. Spirituality is a connection with something higher. And I think that true spirituality is one where we seek and come to answers for ourselves. And what might be right for one person is not always going to be the same for another person. But then there's stuff that's just bullshit, that is just baloney, that is out there, that to me is the reason psychics and mediums and healers get a bad rap. So earlier today, I was scrolling through Facebook, as one does when you're a millennial and you're addicted to social media, and I came, you join these groups and things like that you think you're going to have an interest in, and then you never actually do anything with the group, but anytime someone posts something, it pops up in your newsfeed. So I saw a post from a spiritual group that I thought was a joke until I started to look into it a little bit more deeply. So what I saw was an offering for a woolly mammoth attunement, an Allosaurus attunement, and an iguanodon attunement. And you're probably thinking to yourself, what the fuck is that? Which is exactly the reaction that I had. So, most of the time when you hear the word attunement, you think Reiki, because the process of teaching and passing the techniques and opening someone energetically for that particular modality of healing is called an attunement. It means to, make or to bring a certain resonance to someone's energy with a particular intent. So I started looking at this because I'm laughing, thinking oh, this guy's trolling people. Until I looked at this person's website and they're dead fucking serious. That they think that they are giving you some sort of a magical attunement to imbue you with the energy of these dinosaurs or extinct animals. And I thought to myself, this is it. This is the end of the line. This is the dumbest thing that I have ever seen in my entire life. And it really probably boils down to one of two things. That one, This guy is just pulling whatever he wants out of his ass to make a quick buck in this new age umbrella, which is horrible on its own. Or two, this person legitimately believes that they're giving you some magical quality from dinosaurs, which is totally fucking insane. And I realize, there's going to be some of the love and lighters out there who are like, you should just respect everybody on their journey. Sorry. This right here is exactly the reason why people think that people like me are scam artists and gypsies and taking advantage of people and are grief vultures because they're selling a product that doesn't exist. My spiritualist ancestors, if they saw this shit, if they had Facebook, they would be rolling in their graves. They would be gagging at how ridiculous this shit is, which is why I called this video Get Grounded. Because as I said, there's a blatant lack of groundedness in what has become called the New Age movement, but really what it is today is nothing that, the term came from like Alice Bailey and the Theosophical movement. And what we're seeing today is not esoteric or new thought, it's just plain garbage. Give this person $80 and become a certified fairyologist. Well, what the hell are you supposed to do? What is a fairyologist? Who came up with this shit? And what gives someone the authority to consider themselves someone who can certify someone as a fairy expert? I don't get it. I truly don't get it. I've seen classes and workshops from these new age quacks on, meeting your unicorn spirit guide. There's I probably shouldn't say this, I'm going to anyways. There's this woman who I've followed for some time, not because I enjoy her, but because something about her just feels so incredibly off to me. In my gut, there's just something that feels really gross with this person's energy. Her name's Teal Swan. And when I watch her videos, she just seems completely vacant. There's just this sociopathic energy that comes through. There's no compassion. It's like the lights are on, but no one's home. It's just this empty shell. And when you watch these videos, something just seems so off. But I see, this stuff about, these aliens and Illuminati and satanic cults, and then Hay House picks her up as an author, and it's very clear to me that yes, we all learn and there really isn't a lot of new information, but it was very clear to me that everything was just a regurgitated garbage passed off as her own truth. And it was like, what the hell? Why? I mean, there's such a lack of integrity that the almighty dollar has become more important than an authentic, genuine spiritual experience. I was at Camp Chesterfield over the summer, and I was talking with my friend James about a particular person, and he said something to me that has stuck with me, and I think it's so true, is that people would rather be entertained than have a genuine spiritual experience. And it's so true. People would rather have bullshit and rainbows and puppies blown up their ass than legitimately have to engage in an authentic spiritual experience. And it's sad. It's so sad because there is no growth that is yielded from some of this stuff, like fairyology and unicorns and a lot of these new age teachers. You call on this angel and ask and it's done. Life doesn't work like that. We have to take personal responsibility for our own shit. My very first teacher, Gail St. John, was the one who actually introduced me to spiritualism. And once upon a time, as much as it pains me to admit this, I was a bright and shiny 10, 11, 12 years ago when I was, really first coming into myself and my abilities. And I was a little bit more on what you would call the new agey side, a little bit more on the bright and shiny side. And we were working in some heavy stuff. We were working in missing persons. And we were in the field. We were doing search and rescue one time or search and recovery, you know, you never know. And we were in the middle of the field, and she said it a million times before, but I think I got it at this point when she said, stop. Get grounded. You can't sit down here and pull a tarot card. You got to do your job. You know, there's no time for fluff. There's no time for this angel or that angel. There's someone who's potentially dead, and it's up to you, you know, to help bring some closure to the situation. So get grounded. And I used to think she was just a broken record. And at that point in my journey, I thought get grounded meant, I'm going to close my eyes. And now I'm going to imagine my feet becoming roots and going down into the earth. And they're going to drink up that earth energy. And they're going to let go of anything that doesn't serve them. And that's not what she meant. She meant, and yes, if you're spaced out or blissed out and you need to get grounded, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But the most important grounding is not a fucking tree visualization. It's living groundedly in your everyday life experience. That means being practical. That means being emotionally balanced. That means being in touch with reality so that you can tell the difference between what is true and the unicorns that you think you're seeing in your front yard. There's a reality that is both physical and spiritual, and we can be in touch with a non-physical or a spiritual reality without losing touch with truth. But so many people might actually have a sensitivity, and that sensitivity allows them to be more outside of their body than they are in. But because they are so disconnected and disassociated from their own body, they spend so much time ungrounded and so much time out in the ethers that they start to lose touch with reality. And because everything is the subconscious, especially when you're working on a psychic level, reality and imagination seem to blur. And then you get things like fucking unicorn camps and teal swan and, you know, fairyology. It serves no one. There's no practical spiritual growth that comes from it. I'm for whatever. And I'm not knocking anyone's beliefs. If you want to believe in fairies, if you want to believe in angels, if you want to believe in unicorns, if you want to believe in whatever, Sasquatch. I like Bigfoot though. I think there's something to that. But, you know, whatever you want to believe, that's completely up to you. If it's serving you, if it's practical, if you're growing and changing for the better from it, if, I don't know, if it could be tested, it could be verified in some way. You know, some things are always going to be fringe, but, you know, there are certain things that evidence can be brought through, confirmation can be brought through, even scientifically measured under certain scenarios and in certain degrees. But if you're just, you know, playing with the unicorns and in La La Land, nothing genuine or earth-shattering is coming from that. There's no benefits to such. Yesterday, I was on Instagram, as a millennial does, and I'm scrolling through and I noticed that this person liked my page, liked my profile, or whatever you want to call it, my Instagram. And so I click on their stuff and I see that they're an angel reader. Okay, fine, whatever. And then I start watching their videos, and they have a pretty decent following, quite a lot of views, and this kid, who essentially is a kid, couldn't be older than myself, is again, it's kind of like this teal swan thing. It's like there's this vacantness to their personality, speaking like a robot. It's just empty with the big spiritual, I don't know what it is, a lot of New Agers. I saw that a lot when I lived in California. I'm super spiritual, so I have to have really big doe eyes to make sure that you know that I'm blissed out and spiritual. And he's got these big eyes and this robotic sort of monotone voice talking about all this stuff, which is just clearly recycled Doreen Virtue, Course in Miracles bullshit. And it's like, I see this, and I see some of these New Age teachers that have huge followings, teach all over the world. Some of the biggest publishers have them, and it's a bullshit counterfeit spirituality. And it's just made me think about why it's so important that I do what I do, because when I see this shit, I feel sometimes just like saying, fuck it. Forget about it. You know, this is a dead horse that can't be revived. It's going down a wrong path. It's probably why I'm try to be so active in the spiritualist communities and preserve some of that old time stuff. But it's in pretty paper. You know, when stuff is wrapped practically in this marketable commercial paper, it sells more. You know, if I would have one of these days I'll put together where you can actually see all of like the television shows and offers that I've had from production companies to do TV shows that I've turned down because I'm not willing to sacrifice my integrity. And that's what it really boils down to. And that's why I'm going to continue to do what I do. And again, I know that this video is going to get backlash from people who are, you shouldn't judge, you shouldn't do this. Again, spirituality is not always love and life. There's a duality to the nature of existence, and we have to be willing to own our shit. And people think that sometimes if you own your humanness, then you're less spiritual, or that you're less authentic, and that the longer you do this, the more blissed out, or the more you know, love and lighty that you get. And sometimes it really tries my nerves and just takes all I have, you know, to deal with some of the most ungrounded stuff that I see. And again, that's what it really boils down to, is groundedness. There's a fine line between gifted and crazy. And I think a lot of people dance that line. You know, a lot of people dance that line, but it's about being self-aware. And that's why when I see a lot of this, what I call counterfeit spirituality, those are people who are, for the most part, I think, well-intentioned, but they dance that line. And a lot of these people don't know themselves well enough to purportedly be helping or guiding or teaching other people. You know, there's a difference between genuine, walking the path genuinely of being a teacher, and recycling, you know, what you've read out of your Doreen Virtue book, or, you know, you're this book, or you're that book, or whatever. As I said, there really isn't a lot of new information, but things can always be brought forward in a way that has a new perspective, a new understanding. Old concepts can be re-enlivened and reanimated, but you have to put your own spin on it, and you have to put, you know, you have to make it unique. And that doesn't mean, you know, taking an idea of attunements and then doing, you know, freaking dinosaur woolly mammoth attunements, or whatever else of this crazy nonsense, Anunnaki, reptilians, Pleiadian, DNA activation light code stuff. It's just not my thing. It really isn't. And, you know, if this pisses anybody off, sorry, not sorry. It's my truth, and I stand in that. And, again, you know, it's just where I'm coming from, what I see. That being said, what do you guys want to talk about? If you know yourself, would you have the awareness to fall on the side of crazy? Usually people questioning whether or not they're crazy aren't the ones that I worry about being crazy. You know what I mean? Like, if you have the awareness to you know, self-contemplate your own state of being, you're probably in a pretty good or a pretty grounded place. Fairies, I have a lot of colleagues who teach and work with fairies. I personally do not get it. I personally do not understand it. It's not my truth, but it's their thing. And they're going to do their thing, and that's fine. I have a very hard time with the idea of these little winged Tinkerbells. This, which by the way, that imagery didn't even come about until the Victorian era, and this concept of fae or some of these older beings have been around for eons and eons and eons. And so the other thing you have to look at is, in a lot of cultures, these aren't like friendly little butterfly ladies. They were feared. So I do believe that there are spirits of nature. I don't communicate with them. I respect them. I don't fuck with them. But do I believe, a lot of people are like, you gotta, put the little fairy houses out and the gardens and, invite them in your space. They don't like us. They don't like us. I can't get on board with that. Debbie Jones, this is why I don't do psychic fairs. I do not want to be someone's entertainment. Right? This is why I don't... I have this expo coming up in October, and it's the first one I've agreed to do in a long time because there's so much craziness. Organite. That's another one. Don't get me started on the Organite. I always find it hard to put into words certain concepts. I can read and study till the cows come home, but for me to explain it, I'm at a loss for words. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Megan, life is more about balance and duality. Absolutely. Where I am right now, so this life feed couldn't have come at a better time. Good. Like I said, I'm just sharing from my own experiences, and I grow and evolve as a person. My experience a month from now may have a totally different opinion or perspective, but I can say, as someone who's been on both sides of the fence, that did not yield much for me. It's marketable. It's nice. If I did a class, if I did a class on angels, I'd have 40 people. If I did a class on dealing with your shadow self, I'd have 2 people. That's just the way that it is. People don't want to look at the parts that make them uncomfortable, but that's just as much a genuine part of God is this dark aspect as is the light aspects. Jackie, I did 4 readings between Friday and yesterday and was wiped out and tired. Been grounded and trying to feel better. It's so important, to make sure that you're investing back in yourself. I know for myself, I have been working so hard this year. I've probably doubled my workload this year versus the year before that. And, there's nothing wrong with investing back into yourself. You have to. It's a form of self-care. For me, I usually will take a bath at night, or after a certain point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to shut my counseling mind off, and I'm going to veg out to some vapid television show. And people ask me too, they're like, I don't know, people have all these ideas about who I am or what I'm supposed to be, and lots of times people like to put me on a pedestal, which I hate. But then people find out that I like things like The Real Housewives of Atlanta, or I don't know, I just watch a lot of stuff, and they'll be like, you're a deep, spiritual, intelligent person. Like, why are you watching The Real Housewives of Atlanta? Or why are you watching, I don't know, just one of the many things that I watch. And I'm like, that's exactly why I watch these things. It's grounding. I don't have to think. I don't have to care in that moment. I can shut everything else off, and I can focus on, Kim Kardashian losing her earring in the ocean or whatever that's going on right in front of my face, and make no apologies for it. And I'll go and eat a big steak, and I'm not smoking at the moment, but I'll go and have a cigarette. And, it's like a few years back, I did the Victory of Light in Cincinnati, and it was like a long day. I was so booked, back to back to back. I barely had time to pee. So if I had time to run outside and smoke a cigarette, I was going to run outside and smoke a cigarette. So I was with a guy who actually, I think, popped in here a little bit ago, Kevin. and we were outside the convention center, and I was smoking a cigarette, and this woman walks by, and she looks at me and she goes, "You should know better." Excuse me, bitch? Like, what makes people think, one, I didn't ask you, but two, like, why do we put this association as to what we think someone on a spiritual path should look like, or how we think they should act, or what they think, you know? It's like you have to be, you know, a vegetarian, and you have to be super sweet all the time, and you can't say the F word too much, and, you know, I'm a human. I'm a human being, and I intend to be and partake in a little bit of everything. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and I'm going to enjoy every single second of it while I'm doing it unapologetically. Can you verify the date and time of your class this week on Blackhawk? Friday, 6 p.m. 6:30 p.m. Friday, 6:30. Do we have copies of ourselves living on another plane and making different decisions? What do you call that? I forget. I have a hard time with this concept. I think everyone has a hard time with this concept. It's the idea that if time is not linear, if all possibilities and potentials are happening at the same time, then therefore anything that we would consider a past or a future lifetime would be existing simultaneous as an alternate lifetime or a simultaneous incarnation. Is there truth to that? Probably. Do I think much about it? No, because when we take on this ego and we come into the human form, we sort of lock ourselves into a linear perspective. And the thing that I always tell people, especially in regards to past lives, do I think that there's legitimacy to past lives? I absolutely do. I will even do regression sometimes for people. I haven't done a lot of that work lately. But unless a past life issue or a simultaneous life issue or whatever you want to call it is truly having a negative impact on this life, then I think that we need to focus on this life. So many people want to blame something on a past life, and chances are 99.999% of the time it's not because of a past life. It's because of your actions and your decisions now. So oftentimes we avoid being present, and that's part of being grounded, is being present. One of the simplest things you can do if you're feeling ungrounded or disconnected is to just start looking around the room and naming things in your experience, anchoring you to the present. I see a painting of sunflowers. I see a statue of the Virgin Mary. I see a blue and red pillow. And that just sort of anchors us in the here and now and gets us reconnected to our body. I went to a workshop in New York City about awakening the illuminated hearts. This led me to Portugal with the same guide that held the heart workshop. I became very fond of her and put her on a pedestal. Long story short, I walked outside the center to see her taking a couple hits of a cigarette, and I was so hurt by it. Now I'm going to have a cigarette as we speak. Yes, exactly. These people are human. Now, there's a difference between seeing someone in their humanness and seeing someone not walk their talk. That's where I personally have allowed myself to be disappointed in the past. You know, they say not to meet your heroes or to not meet people that you look up to. And I have found this repeatedly to be true for myself. You know, one time God, what year was it? I think it was like 2009, late 2008. I had the opportunity to meet Alison Dubois. And that did not go well. Personally, to me, she was nice, but she just, you know, you have an idea. You create a fictitious idea of what someone is like in your head, and then you meet them. And as I've said, it's one thing to see someone in their humanness. It's another thing to see someone when they're not, you know, they're not walking their talk. I've lived it, you know, a past partnership of mine, a past relationship with someone who was sort of a at least they thought of themselves as sort of a spiritual figure or a significant teacher. And there was lots of horrible toxic shits that once I got past the illusion or the guise of spirituality, I saw that this was just a person who had a lot of issues and was kind of, to me, in my opinion, sick in the head. So, hey, Tina, speaking of, she knows who I'm talking about. But yeah, it was certainly just seeing her in her humanness, and it was me placing unrealistic expectations on her. Absolutely. We're all just doing the best we can, running around on this ball, spinning in the middle of space, doing what we can with what we have. And that's why it's not that I don't have compassion towards some of these people, and I know that I may have ripped on some people tonight. Like I know I stirred up the Swanners, the Swannies. But it's not that I see her as an evil person. I think she has issues. I think she's in pain. And I think that her attempt to maybe help other people is an attempt at helping herself. I don't know. I don't have a degree in psychology. But yeah. That's just, and the other thing too is if a particular spiritual teacher resonates for you and is assisting you, you genuinely feel helped by their stuff, that's great. That doesn't mean it has to resonate with me, and that doesn't mean I have to resonate with them. I'm just going off my experiences, the grossness that I felt inside of me and continue to, and some of the inconsistencies when you start researching these people and people that have worked for these people and all this stuff. A lot of, in my world, 1 + 1 = 2, and if 1 + 1 is showing up as 3, there's a reason. It's because something is off, something's not right. So that's just what I go by. But if it works for you, work it. And if you like it, I love it. This is also why too, like, I know when I first started doing some of the live videos, just little things like I would smoke, or you might see like my lighter in my hand, and on one hand there's like the part of me where this is my livelihood, this is my business, and thinking, oh, that's not professional. But on the other hand too, it's like people have, I've found that people express more of a respect by seeing that I'm just a person. And by taking steps to not allow myself to be put up on a pedestal. Because when you allow yourself to be put up on a pedestal, someone's going to come along sooner or later and kick it out from under you. And I can't tell you the amount of people who have gushed over me or whatever. And at first I kind of take it in stride and handle it graciously. But at some point you have to be like, knock it off. Like, I can be a dick sometimes. I'm just a human. I am a 28-year-old American kid, and I don't pretend to be anything other than that. I have an ability that allows me to do something that a lot of other people can't do, and I believe in something higher than myself and pursue my truth via that source of guidance. But beyond that, I'm just Travis. So that was my rant. But if on a more serious note, if there's something that you guys want to talk about or address, I'd be happy to look at it for you. Carla, I'm not so much doing readings tonight. But I will say this. One, I am incredibly sorry for the loss of your son. In all of the work that I've ever done, there has been no heavier grief, there has been no greater pain than the loss that a parent feels for a child, because it goes against the natural order of things. It's something that nobody should ever have to go through. And for that, I am incredibly and sincerely sorry. How do I know that he's at peace? You're asking this for yourself, like, how do you know if he's at peace? There are some psychics or mediums or whatever who think that sometimes spirits aren't at peace, and it's okay. You don't have to apologize. And I will do readings periodically, so there's always a chance to connect, or we could set something up. But there are some psychics and mediums who think that sometimes souls aren't at peace, or that they become earthbound, and I think that's absolute nonsense. We come from the spirit world, we come from the divine, we come from source, and there's nothing that can stop us from returning back from that. So we come from love, and we always, 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 without exception, return to love. And so I do feel very confidently that your son is at peace. And I, hopefully we'll be able to connect someday, and I may be able to bring you some messages from him, and for whatever reason, if I can't, I can always find someone who can for you. But you have my deepest sympathy. I am so, so sorry. Ted Johnson, what are your thoughts on psychic protection? I personally do not do this for readings. I don't believe in and I don't teach psychic protection. Because when you say, okay, I'm going to open up to the spirit world, but there might be a boogeyman out there, so I'm going to put this bubble around me to protect me from said boogeyman, you're automatically reacting out of a place of fear. And that old adage, what you fear, you draw near. If you worry about psychics, or if you worry about zombies and boogeymen and goblins, you'll find zombies and boogeymens and goblins. But if you know that you are surrounded by the spirit world, which is ultimately love, and that everything responds to your vibration, and if I work from a place of compassion and integrity, that's the only thing that you'll ever get in return. Melissa, Travis, I was born psychic medium into a very religious family who do not believe in psychics. Have you ever been in this situation? I know it's God-given, so why do you think it's evil? Or so why do they think it's evil? I can empathize, Melissa. I was brought up Pentecostal, where everything's the devil. But the thing that a lot of these people don't, I think, take into consideration is that the word psychic or medium or whatever didn't exist in biblical times. In some translations of the Bible, you will see the word medium, but that didn't really come till later, when there's things being transferred from Aramaic and Hebrew and Greek and all of that stuff into English. But if you look in the book of Corinthians, the Apostle Paul speaks on the gifts of the Spirit, and those gifts include the gift of discernment, the gift of prophecy, healing, teaching. If you look at the prophets of the Old Testament, they saw things, they heard things, they felt things, they discerned spirits. So I really think it kind of boils down to semantics, and to me it's one of the spiritual gifts that are available to people. And I think if they look at it from that perspective, they could probably be a little bit more empathetic or sympathetic to being the way that you are. Even in some churches today, they will do essentially readings from the pulpit, but they don't call it that. They call it prophesying. So it's like when it's in the doors of the church, it's fine. Outside the doors of the church, it's the devil. But I would definitely just tell them to look more into Corinthians and the teachings of the Apostle Paul. I hear my son say I'm at peace now, Mom. 9 hours before I went to find him, he took his own life. It was the worst day of our lives, but he's at peace. Keep through. Jackie, that's a great point. I don't believe that there's punishment, for people that have taken their own life. I've had countless suicides come through in my sessions, and not once have they ever been punished by anyone other than themselves and their own judgments that they have felt. And even then, those are healed and worked through. So there is no punishment. As I said, we're all just doing the best we can with what we have. Hey Madeline, hey Rachel, hey Christy. Alright guys, anything else? Is there anyone else I can offend before I get off here tonight? Alright, my friends. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thanks for listening to me. I'll go read that now. I was raised Southern Baptist. I feel you, girl. I feel you. But anyways, again, that's just my 2 cents. I appreciate you guys for listening. And I genuinely, and I don't know that I've said this before here, but I genuinely appreciate each and every one of you. I have found that this is a really responsive platform, these live videos, and I enjoy doing it. And it allows me to connect with you guys in a way that I wasn't able to before. It makes it seem a little bit more, a little bit more intimate. And every time I do these and you ask me something, in giving an answer or in giving my truth, I learn a little bit more myself. And so, in as much as you might think I'm helping or assisting or answering something for you, you're doing the same for me. And I appreciate it. I appreciate you for seeing my truth. I appreciate you for seeing me and my humanness. I appreciate you for seeing my intention as always being in integrity and knowing that I'm always doing the best for you guys that I can, and I'm not perfect, and some days I'm better than others, and sometimes my services are sharper than others, but I do this work because I care, and I do this work because I feel I have to. I really authentically feel like it's my purpose for being. And if it wasn't for you guys who enjoy this content or engage my services, I wouldn't be able to do that. So you have my sincerest gratitude. Good night, guys.